Hello, this is Michèle from Jasami Publishing with the newest episode of Jasami Bookworm Podcast. Now, we have a special treat for you today. We're splitting it into 3 parts. The first one is with my cohort in crime as a writer. Welcome, Simpson Munro.
Thank you.
The first part will be chatting with Simpson about the process that's going on with 3 editors. Then in the middle part, we're going to chat with the 3 editors who are working on the project. And then the final bit will be Simpson and I coming together to wrap things up. So shortly, you're going to be meeting the 3 editors working on your project Going Home. How do you feel about this, Simpson?
3 editors is a great idea, simply because of the volume of work that's going to be involved in it in a short period of time before it comes out. I think it's a really good move on the part of Jasami. I'm quite looking forward to meeting them, see where they're at, see where they're coming from, and what they've got to offer.
I have to admit, this is a brand new project that Jasami is undertaking because we've never split one into 3 before, but with circumstances such as they are, and the reason we're doing this is that we're so excited about the trilogy. We want to make sure that it gets out in time for the Edinburgh International Book Festival, of which we will be at, and we're hoping in anticipation that our books will be accepted as they have been on prior years. So it's a trilogy coming together. What does that mean to you, Simpson?
I think we should tell everybody first and foremost the name of the book. It would really help.
I thought I said Going Home.
Did you? Maybe I missed it.
Oh,
anyway,
that's okay. If you actually paid attention to anything I said, I'd be shocked anyway.
Yeah, of course. Right. So, and your question was what?
The trilogy is An Officer's Tale, The Secondment, and now we're working on Going Home.
I'm really looking forward to getting Going Home out there and rounding up the trilogy. The point about Going Home is basically it rounds up book 1 and book 2. I think what I'm really looking forward to is the anticipation of the readers we have at the moment. I've been getting asked time and time again, when's it coming out? We really need to find out where it all goes, and I think we're maybe about 6 or 8 weeks away from that.
Absolutely we are. We want to make sure it's perfect. I'd like to introduce the editors, which I will shortly when we meet up with them, but it's Anton, Callum, and David, and they are wonderful editors, varying degrees of experience, and that's why they're a team, so that each one can support the others. So we have ones that are very experienced supporting one another. So shortly we'll be meeting them, and we will do the introductions then. Until that point in time, I'll say cheerio for now, Simpson.
Okay, no problem. Looking forward to meeting them.
See you very, very soon.
Okay.
And this is the part where we're going to introduce the fabulous editors that are working on Going Home. It's the 3rd in the trilogy on the Andy Blackmore series. And we have Anton, welcome.
Hello, thank you.
Callum, welcome.
Hello, pleasure to be here.
And David, welcome.
Hi, how is everyone?
So I know it's unusual to have a team of editors, but we don't do things normally in the world of Jasami. So what we'll do is we'll talk about the editing team that we've got together for the Andy Blackmore series. Anton has actually worked on editing An Officer's Tale. We're redoing that, just bringing it up to date with the characters. So Anton, first, how did you find the editing process working with An Officer's Tale?
I found it very gratifying to work on something that I knew was actually going to go out into the world, and to put the editing skills that I learned at uni to the test. And I think it was pretty formative for me in terms of figuring out that not only was I good at editing, but that I actually really enjoyed the process. And I think what I discovered about it was a far more collaborative process than I thought it would be. and it's something I really enjoy about it.
Excellent. And Callum, I know you've done editing before. Don't remember if you've worked in a team on one book before. So how is this going to work with you? How do you feel about working in a team?
Yeah, I'm really excited. Yeah, I've just done freelance things before now and just working on my own. So this is all really new and exciting experience. Working with fiction as well is it's what I want to do, I think, with my kind of career. So it's really exciting. I'm really looking forward to it.
Excellent. Now, David, this is your first time working on a team in editing as well. How do you feel about it?
So far, so good. This is my first time working editing pretty much in general. The only thing I did was a short course in uni, so this is like full new steps for me. But I'm interested in what I've already done, and I'm excited to keep going.
And you bring up an excellent point. One of the reasons that we do this is we have varying levels of editors who work on projects. And so when we have a team, if someone doesn't have as much experience as some of our other editors, then you've got the reliance on them and where it is. And you'll all be working with the same character, which is Andy Blackmore. We have 2 prior books that we've worked on, which is An Officer's Tale and The Secondment, leading to the trilogy with Going Home. And it's the full arc of the story. And from what I understand, and I've heard myself, there are quite a number of people that are really excited about the culmination of the story. So, Anton, now since you've done An Officer's Tale and you've looked at that, what do you think are the key characteristics of the book that are most interesting to you?
I would say being assigned the final part of the book and kind of editing the conclusion of the series. I think what I'm most interested in is where Andy ends up by the end of the series, psychologically, how his personality, how his understanding of himself and the world kind of shifts with, the deaths of all of these characters. I don't want to give anything away or spoil anything.
No spoiler alerts. Who dies? Seriously? Oh no, we'll have to wait and see. That spoiler alert that will keep us going about who is coming through. So, no spoiler alert. There might be a death or 2. Go ahead, Anton. Sorry.
Yeah. So with these alleged deaths, I'm really interested to see where Andy ends up, and I'm excited to be a part of getting Andy to this place where his character arc is complete by the end of the trilogy.
You bring up an excellent point, Anton. It's the protagonist. The protagonist obviously is Andy Blackmore, and his key as a constable, and the fact that he's not in the upper echelon. So, as a character develops, Callum, what do you think is important in a protagonist? Should they be perfect? Should they not? How should the development, do you see, go?
I think it's more interesting if they're not perfect. I think Andy Blackmore's an interesting character because he's got that kind of confidence, he's got that kind of cockiness, but he's also been through a lot in the last couple of novels, and he will go through a lot in this. And so it's really interesting trying to bring together those kind of points of characterization, make the character consistent, but also develop, and kind of striking that balance is a really interesting part of editing.
You bring up an excellent point about the development of characters and where they are and where he's starting at, with the personality that he has. David, what do you think is interesting with the part you're dealing with? We've divided it into 3 parts for editing, but you'll be working as a team, so it will actually be just all melded together. Andy's character, what did you find interesting?
I think it's sort of a unique position as the one to start off after an ending as well. So whatever had been concluded, whatever his arc was in the second book, now this is the start of the next one, while also continuing the rest of the things he'd been going through before. So it'd be really interesting to sort of lay the stepping stones for the work that Callum and Anton will then do afterwards, while working closely to see what kind of things you can come up with at the end, while like continuing and suggesting and refreshing all the ideas that came before to sort of make a nuanced and imperfect but interesting character.
The continuity of the story is key, and I think I've brought together a phenomenal team to do that, if I do say so myself, because it's working together in a team that will make it as if it is one voice. And I haven't introduced anyone yet, but we have the author with us briefly, and we'll just take a few comments from Simpson. How do you feel about the team of authors working on Going Home?
I think you'd be struggling to get any better, to be honest with you.
Oh.
And I'm not saying that because they're sitting here, but because you know I've said things in the past with editors. Anyway, yeah, I'm going to be really interested to see how it's all going to work out with three of them, coming maybe from three different angles.
I know that a lot of people that have read the book have come to you and said they're really anxious to see what's going to happen in Going Home.
Yeah.
How do you feel that's going to, how do you feel they're going to welcome that?
I think they're just desperate to get to the end. We're all rounding up, and I've taken an absolute pasting for some of the things that happens in the secondment, and I think they're looking for a cheery ending.
But there is always just an ending with a book.
Yeah.
I know that the editing process has sometimes been challenging with you in the beginning, and we won't go down this road because it's not about editing.
No.
But the meeting that we've had with the editors, how do you feel about the questions they've asked about the character?
Great. It's rather, see when you're sitting writing a book, and I've got no doubt that it goes for all authors, and when you're sitting writing it, the character, you don't really think about things, if you know what I mean. You've brought up, Tristan, you've brought up some points today which are absolutely amazing, you know, which I never gave a thought to, and I don't think that way, you know. You brought up some psychological stuff, etc, etc. Maybe if I do another one, I'll start thinking about these things. And there is another two to follow this, and I said to you last week, I'm going to go back over them again to bring out certain things, like, you know, rather she turned and looked at him, she turned and looked at him with, you know, tears in her eyes and things like that, just to add wee bits and pieces into it. Mm-hmm. And as the sunset, your favourite one?
Yes.
The deep blood red sunset. I am going to get that in somewhere, and I shall acknowledge you for bringing it up.
A little Easter egg.
You know?
Inside joke.
Thank you, Catherine Grace, for bringing up the deep blue sunset. Deep
Blood red. We
is,
like murder. We like murder.
That one as well. Yeah, I think I'm more relaxed into the editing process now than I was at the start.
I think we've brought a great team together.
Yeah.
I think I will acknowledge that every reader brings something different to a story. Every editor brings their own point of view to a story. And although it might be different, the thing that's important is that each will bring the continuity of editing. That although we bring our personal viewpoints and our personal ideas, we also approach it as an editor, that has to be clean that way, that the voice of the author is always there and we never lose the point of the characters. However, that's an editor's job, is to make sure that that character is as true to the author as it can be. And sometimes changes have to be made, and that's where you look at all of it. So this was just a quick part of this podcast. I want to thank you all, and we will bring it down as I always do, because there's 3 parts to this podcast. We're going to have the editors in the middle, but I'm still going to do the shout-outs. So we'll start out with shout-outs. Anton, who would you like to do a shout-out to?
In general?
Yes. Shout out to say thank you to anybody in particular, just acknowledging.
Shout out to Michèle and Simpson for giving me this opportunity to work on the trilogy. It's been very fulfilling, and I'm glad to be here, and thank you for having me on the podcast.
Oh, thank you. Callum, you're next on the hot seat. Who would you like to give a shout out to? Doesn't have to be us, buddy. But thank you, Anton. I appreciate that.
Contractually obliged.
Yes, must be acknowledged.
Give a shout out to all my excellent colleagues here. Very excited to be working with all of you to create, a fantastic piece of work. I'm really looking forward to it.
You one-upped me. Now I feel bad.
All for it.
David, you're really in the hot seat now. Who would you like to give a shout out to?
To not risk echoing anyone or anything like that, so I'd like to shout out myself. No, I mean, I had no idea. Shout out to Daniel Defoe for making the first fictional book so that we would eventually get here 300 years later.
Excellent.
There we are.
I love that. I love that. And Simpson, you get to have a free shout out. You'll get another one later. Yeah, you get 2.
I would like to give a shout out to the 3 editors, because I've never heard so much crawling in all my goddamn life.
Absolutely. And my shout out is to all of the team here at Jasami. Each and every one of them brings a creativity and enthusiasm and intelligence to their projects, and especially the 3 before me, which is David, Callum, and Anton. So thank you to all of you, because without all of you, Jasami wouldn't be here. So thank you. And this is just the middle part of the podcast, so I'm not going to sign off with my normal goodbyes. So now you've met your 3 editors, Anton, Callum, and David. How are you feeling, Simpson?
Much more relaxed that the book going home is in good hands. I've got absolutely no doubt about it. 3 highly intelligent young men. We did have a question and answer session. Questions were all relevant. Have you thought about this? Have you thought about that? And being dead honest, no, I didn't think about this and that. I think they're looking at it through different eyes than what I'm looking at it through. They're looking at it as an outsider, reading it for the first time. Some of the ideas are absolutely brilliant. There's no doubt about it.
And the good thing is that with the experience they have in editing, and I'm delighted to say that Anton was the one who has reviewed An Officer's Tale, and we're going to do a re-release on that. Mm-hmm. And his ideas and suggestions in that, in preparation for the trilogy being released. How did you feel about those now that we've reviewed them?
I can see exactly where he's coming from and where I should have been coming from. He's very, very experienced in what he was doing. I'm a total rank amateur on what I was doing right at the kick-off with An Officer's Tale. And he's put in a word here, or 2-3 words there, and it's just changed the whole perspective of the thing. Andy Blackmore's still Andy Blackmore, June Brown's still June Brown, but it's just wee things like, he laughed and held his stomach. Right, okay, I can see where you're coming from. Through clenched teeth, he didn't really want to answer those questions when he's speaking to Susan, and tried to change the subject. Okay, Keith, I'll stick my hands up to the boy, yeah. And I've still to see the rest of the stuff, his suggestions and wee bits that he's tweaked, and what he's tweaked is absolutely brilliant.
That's the difference between being an author and an editor. An author creates the characters, creates the story, the plot, and what goes forward. And no matter how talented any author is, they have to have. Stephen King has an editor, as we were talking about, Alexander McCall Smith, they've got editors, Ian Rankin, they all have editors, because there's no author who can write something and it's perfect to begin with. And we deal, as everyone knows, Dasami only deals with brand new writers. So we know that it's a process, and it's a learning process about editing. And this process, especially with the revision of An Officer's Tale, has taken it to that next level. And that's what we're looking for with, our internship program, and who we bring in and the experience they have and that they bring to us. And I am so, so happy that we had that meeting today, because it's very important for the editors to meet the author and ask those questions.
So David was very, very good. Anton's very, very good. And Callum, excellent, no doubt about it. It'd be interesting to see if they actually... If you give Anton part one, his third of the book, and then give Callum the middle part of the book, and David the other part, and then switch the parts around, what kind of take each one would have on it?
We are actually...
I know they're going to work in unison.
Yes.
Yeah, but... Right, so give part one to part two, and part two to part three, and see what kind of different takes it might have on it.
Well, as we do, with our editing process, they're set up as a team editing group. So they are going to work together on it, although they may be working on separate parts. It's going to be cohesive, and they are going to keep the truth of the author, you Simpson, the author's voice, of which I talk about to everyone all the time, the importance of the author's voice, how you wrote that. Every editor needs to remain true to that. That's the importance of the editing process. And how they're going to do it, they have been allocated them, not necessarily in that order, but they have been allocated, but they are going to be working with each other in that group. And then, of course, there'll be another editor reviewing everything, part of Dasami. We won't talk about that. And then, of course, it will come to you for you to see what the suggestions are, the edits that they've done, and we, as we always do, are going to create a miracle and have it in time for the Edinburgh International Book Festival. So of all of the books you've done you did two in the Andy Blackmore series. You've done The Publisher, which we loved, and that has a surprise ending. And then you have another one that you're working on, The Cleaner, which is a separate story for further on. How the editing process that you've been exposed to recently, how will that affect your writing going forward?
As you know, there's the trilogy is the trilogy, and that comes to a conclusion. And thereafter, you've got two more Andy Blackmore books, which totally finishes the whole thing.
Unless you write another one.
No. I'm putting him to bed now. He's retired and he's finished. As I said to you the other day, having seen what I've seen, I'm going to go back to book 4, which is 10 years after, and I'm going to go back to book 5, which is One More Time, and totally review both books. And I've got absolutely no doubt there'll be a stack of changes made before you get your hands on them again.
I have to say I'm really happy to hear that you're going to do that, Simpson, because every author learns from the editors. We all do. It's a constant learning process. And I have to say I learn quite a bit from the editors I work with on a daily basis. So, but taking that in and learning from it, see, it just goes to show you that everyone can learn, and that when you see it in action and what happens with minor changes to just a few lines, how it affects the story in a positive way. Yeah, I've got absolutely no doubt about it, and it is a learning process. And I'm quite sure those that have written one book or 100 books still learns. Absolutely. It is every single day. So, any final thoughts before we wrap this up, Simpson?
I just want to see it in its new. How would you say? With all the tweaks in it.
In its entirety.
Yeah, the final edit, to see how, because I've still got the originals on my laptops, and it'll be interesting to compare the original to the final edit.
Even a chapter by chapter, you'll see the differences, which will be great.
Mm-hmm.
So, thank you very much for your time today. It's
You're more
been
welcome.
an experience working as the group. I've thoroughly enjoyed it.
Yeah, I did too.
And you get the chance for a second shout out because we did one earlier, but I'm going to give that to you as well.
I think the shout out on this occasion should go to Jasami Publishing as a whole for the effort that's getting put into this third and final part of the trilogy. And I'm not going to single out any single person, but the company as a whole. There you go.
Thank you very much. Actually, thank you. I do appreciate that it's all the team, so it is a company, because it's the teamwork that makes everything absolutely work. So I'm going to do the shout out once again. This is slightly different, but it's to all the new authors out there, the ones that we're going to be publishing next year. We've got a couple of books that I'm very excited about, and potential authors who will come to us. So I wish to say, go for it, write that story, and then you never know who's going to take it up and publish it for you. But have the courage to write it and put it away in the drawer and pull it out a month or two later and look at it again. So shout out to all of those writers who are creative but concerned about, oh, no one will love my story, because someone has loved yours. In fact, more than one someone has loved your stories, haven't they, Simpson?
Mm-hmm.
Excellent.
I'm still waiting for number 3 and desperate to get their hands on it.
Yes, I've heard this, but we're waiting for the Edinburgh International Book Festival for the trilogy release, as we are with the trilogy of the Hell series. Just a little quick advertisement in there.
Yep.
So this is Michèle from Jasami Bookworm Podcast. Thank you once again, Simpson.
Okay, one more thing to say. Although we've done the shout outs, I know you've got some really exciting projects coming up. And what I would say to those authors is trust Jasami.
Thank you
Yeah.
again. And this is Michèle, Jasami Bookworm Podcast, wishing you all a sunny day.